I'm Hadley, and I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, in a family that looked like it stepped out of a glossy magazine. On the outside, we had it all: big house, fancy cars, and a chain of boutique hotels that made everyone think we were living the American dream. But inside, it was a different story. My parents always had a favorite, and it wasn't me. My younger brother, Lucas, got everything handed to him: private schools, shiny SUVs, even a penthouse apartment when he barely worked a day in his life. Me? I was the one told to figure it out. Always did. I fought for every scrap I got. Worked 2 jobs through college, graduated with honors in finance, and clawed my way into a solid career as a financial planner. I thought if I proved myself, they'd see me. But no matter how many late nights I pulled or how many deals I closed, I was invisible to them. The only person who ever really saw me was my grandfather. He was the one who built our family's wealth, a retired investment banker who made smart real estate moves long before I was born. He set up a trust fund, $5 million, meant to be split between me and Lucas when we came of age. He was fair, kind, and the only one who didn't play favorites. One morning, everything changed. I was packing for a big business trip to Chicago, a chance to pitch to a major client that could have boosted my career. My phone rang, and it was my mom. Her voice was shaky, like she'd been crying. "Hadley, honey, it's your grandfather," she said, barely holding it together. "He's had a bad fall. We need you here." My heart dropped. My grandfather meant the world to me. He'd been my rock, the one who cheered me on when no one else did. Without a second thought, I canceled my flight, rescheduled my meetings, and rushed to his house in Buckhead, my stomach in knots. When I walked through his door, I froze. There he was, sitting in his favorite leather armchair, reading a newspaper, looking as healthy as ever. No bruises, no bandages, just a cup of coffee in his hand. He looked up, confused. "Hadley, what are you doing here?" he asked, setting the paper down. I blinked, trying to process. "Mom called. She said you fell, that you were hurt bad." His face darkened, and he leaned forward, rubbing his temples. "She told you that?" he said, his voice low. My chest tightened. Something was wrong. Really wrong, I stammered. "What's going on?" He sighed, heavy, like he was carrying a weight he'd held for years. "She asked me to lie, Hadley. Said it'd keep things peaceful if you stayed behind. I told her no, I wouldn't do that to you." My knees felt weak. My own mom had made up a story about my grandfather's health just to keep me from what? I sank into the couch, my mind racing. "She said it was a family vacation," I whispered. "The Bahamas. I thought we were all going." His eyes softened, sad and angry at once. "They never meant to take you, sweetheart." My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, hands trembling, and opened Instagram. There it was, a photo of my entire family on a white sand beach, all smiles, holding cocktails. My parents, Lucas, aunts, uncles, cousins. Everyone but me. Lucas had posted it, his caption smug: "Nothing beats family time in paradise." My breath caught in my throat. I was supposed to be there, laughing with them, part of the picture. Instead, they'd lied, used my grandfather's name to trick me. The betrayal cut deep, like a blade twisting in my chest. I gripped my phone so hard my knuckles turned white, fighting back tears. They thought I'd just take it like always. But this time, they were wrong. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my grandfather's couch, the glow of my phone lighting up the dark living room as I scrolled through those Bahamas photos again. Each one hurt more than the last. My mom's arm around Lucas, my dad raising a glass, everyone laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. They'd planned this behind my back, used my grandfather's name to keep me away, and left me thinking I was saving him while they partied. My hands shook as I zoomed in on Lucas's smug grin. How could they do this? My grandfather sat beside me, his face etched with worry. "Hadley," he said, his voice steady but heavy, "there's something you need to know." My heart pounded as he reached into his desk and pulled out a thick folder, handing it to me. "This is everything I've been tracking," he said. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the cover. Whatever was inside, I knew it would change everything. I opened it, and my world tilted. Bank statements, trust fund reports, legal documents, pages and pages of proof that my parents had been stealing from me for years. They were supposed to split the trust fund between you and Lucas, he said, his voice tight. But they took your share bit by bit. I scanned the papers, my eyes catching on transactions. $50,000 for Lucas's private school, $100,000 for his sports car, more for his failed startup ideas. My money. The trust fund was worth $5 million, meant for both of us, but they'd funneled nearly all of it to him. I felt like I couldn't breathe. All those years I'd worked late nights, saved every penny, while they handed Lucas my future like it was nothing. There's more, my grandfather said, his voice dropping. They're planning to give the hotel chain to Lucas. Your dad's finalizing the paperwork now. I stared at him, my mind reeling. The Harris Hotels, our family's pride, the business I dreamed of helping run one day, was supposed to be shared. They're cutting me out completely? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He nodded, his jaw tight. I gave your dad control years ago, thinking he'd do right by you both. I was wrong. The room spun. I thought of every time I'd stayed late at work, every client I'd won, every sacrifice I'd made to prove I was worthy of this family. And they'd been planning to erase me all along. My grandfather's hand found mine, grounding me. You don't have to let this happen, Hadley, he said. You're stronger than they think. A spark ignited in my chest, not just anger, but something sharper, colder, determination. They thought I'd stay quiet, like I always had. But I was done being their doormat. I called my Aunt Julia, the one family member who'd always had my back. She'd walked away from the family business years ago, fed up with my parents' shady dealings. A corporate attorney with a sharp mind and sharper tongue, she was the kind of person who didn't take nonsense. When she arrived, she took one look at the folder and nodded. This is fraud, Hadley, she said, flipping through the papers. They've been siphoning your inheritance, and if they're moving money to offshore accounts, they're planning to disappear, probably to the Caribbean. My blood ran cold. They weren't just stealing, they were planning to vanish with what was left. We can stop them, Julia said, her eyes fierce. But we need to act fast. I nodded, my mind racing. For years, I'd swallowed my pain, hoping my parents would see me as their daughter, not just the one they could ignore. But now, I saw them for who they were, people who'd rather destroy me than share what was rightfully mine. What's our first move? I asked. Julia leaned forward, a glint in her eye. We hit them where it hurts, their reputation. I felt a smile tug at my lips. My parents lived for their perfect image. If we tore that down, they'd have nowhere to hide. The next morning, I sat with Aunt Julia and my grandfather, my phone in hand, ready to light a match under my parents' perfect facade. They'd built their lives on looking flawless, successful hoteliers, doting parents, pillars of Atlanta's elite. But it was all a lie, and I was done letting them hide behind it. I opened Instagram, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Lucas's latest post stared back at me, him on a yacht, drink in hand, with the caption, "Living the dream with family." My stomach twisted. That dream was built on my stolen future, I typed, my hands steady despite the anger burning in my chest. Funny how my parents lied about my grandfather's health to keep me from our family vacation. Funnier still how they took my $5 million trust fund and the Harris Hotels, meant for me and Lucas, and gave it all to him. They thought I'd never find out. I hit post and held my breath. Within minutes, the notifications exploded. Likes, comments, shares. Friends, distant cousins, even my parents' business partners were stunned, flooding the post with questions. Is this true? What's going on with Harris Hotels? The truth was out, and it was spreading like wildfire. My phone rang almost immediately. Lucas's name flashed on the screen. Hadley, what the hell? He hissed, his voice low, like he was hiding. Take that post down. You're making Mom and Dad look awful. I let the silence stretch, letting him squirm. Awful, I said, my voice calm but sharp. They lied to me, Lucas. They stole my money, my future. And you went along with it. He sputtered. You don't get it. It's complicated. No, I shot back. It's simple. You took what was mine. Next was my mom. Her voice was ice cold. Hadley, delete that post. You're embarrassing us. I laughed, bitter and raw. Embarrassing you? You faked grandfather's injury, gave Lucas my inheritance, and planned to hand him the business. You embarrassed yourself. She huffed. We did what was best for the family. Lucas was ready for that money, not you. Her words stung, but I was done letting them hurt me. You're wrong, I said. And you'll see how wrong soon enough. By evening, the fallout was unstoppable. Reporters called, sniffing around Harris Hotel's finances. Employees, long silenced, started sharing stories of unpaid wages and sketchy deals. My grandfather made calls to old business contacts, and investors began pulling back, spooked by the scandal. Aunt Julia and I filed legal papers to freeze the hotel chain's transfer to Lucas. The paperwork wasn't finalized, but it was close, too close. If we could prove fraud, we could stop it cold. That night, my grandfather handed me one last document, his eyes steady. This is the original contract I signed with your dad, he said. It gave him control of Harris Hotels, but there's a clause nobody noticed. I read it, my heart racing. It stated that if dishonesty or misconduct was proven, control could be revoked. This was our ace, the key to dismantling their plan. I looked up, a fire in my chest.
We've got them, I said.
Julia nodded, her smile fierce. Let's finish this. The next morning, I walked into the Harris Hotel's downtown office, my grandfather's contract tucked under my arm. My heart pounded, but my steps were steady. For years, I'd felt like an outsider in my own family, but today, I was taking back what was mine. I pushed open the door to my dad's corner office. He and my mom were there, frantically shoving papers into a shredder. They froze when they saw me. My dad's face turned crimson. You don't belong here, Hadley, he snapped. I held up the contract, my voice calm. Actually, I do. His eyes narrowed, but I saw a flicker of fear. I stepped forward. You missed something in this contract, Dad. The clause that says if you're caught lying or stealing, you lose everything. He snatched the paper, scanning it, his jaw tightening with every line. My mom gripped the desk, her face pale. Hadley, let's talk about this, she said, her voice shaky.
Talk,
I said, raising an eyebrow. Where was the talking when you gave Lucas my trust fund? When you planned to hand him the business? Lucas burst in, red-faced and panting. You're destroying everything, Hadley. Why can't you just let it go? I turned to him, my voice steady. Let it go? You lived off my money, Lucas. You took my future, and you didn't even blink. He threw up his hands. You're just bitter. I stepped closer, my eyes locked on his. Bitter?
No.
I'm done letting you all walk over me. The office doors swung open again. 2 federal agents stepped in, followed by Aunt Julia and my grandfather. My dad's face drained of color. What is this? He shouted. One agent, a tall woman in a sharp suit, spoke up. Mr. Harris, we have evidence of financial fraud and offshore transfers. You and your wife are under arrest. My mom gasped, clutching my dad's arm. Do something, she hissed. But he was frozen, the contract still in his hand. I pulled out another folder, bank records, trust fund statements, proof of every dollar they'd stolen. This, I said, shows you took $5 million that was mine. My dad's eyes burned with rage. You think you've won? He spat. I met his gaze, unflinching. I'm not trying to win. I'm taking back what's mine. Lucas stared at me, his mouth open, finally realizing the game was over. As the agents cuffed my parents, I felt a weight lift. For the first time, I wasn't the invisible daughter. I was the one in control. The weeks that followed were a blur, but they changed everything. The court case was swift. Aunt Julia presented the evidence like a master, laying out every lie, every stolen dollar. The judge ruled the hotel chain transfer to Lucas was fraudulent, null, and void. My parents' attempt to rewrite the family legacy collapsed, and the court did something I never expected. It awarded me full ownership of Harris Hotels. The business I'd been excluded from, The one they tried to steal was mine. My parents faced prison for financial fraud. Lucas, without their money or influence, was left scrambling. He sent me a text, a half-hearted apology, trying to worm his way back. I didn't respond. Some betrayals cut too deep, and I was done carrying the weight of his entitlement. My grandfather pushed for the trust fund's recovery, but most of the $5 million was gone, funneled into Lucas's life or hidden offshore. Still, the hotels were worth more, not just in money, but in what they represented. A chance to build something honest. Taking over wasn't easy. My dad had left a mess, shady deals, unpaid staff, and a toxic culture. I walked into Harris Hotel's headquarters one morning, not as the overlooked daughter, but as the owner. Employees who'd once avoided my gaze now met it with cautious hope. I got to work, paying back wages, setting up a scholarship fund for workers' kids, and opening the books for transparency. Slowly, trust grew. The hotel started to feel like a place where people wanted to work, not just had to point. One evening, I sat with my grandfather on the rooftop of our flagship hotel, the Atlanta skyline sparkling below. He sipped his coffee, a quiet smile on his face. "You know," he said, "I always knew you had it in you." I tilted my head. "What's that?" He leaned back, his eyes warm. "The strength to turn their lies into your truth." I laughed softly, the weight of years of doubt lifting. He was right. They tried to break me, to erase me, but all they did was show me what I was capable of. I wasn't just surviving their betrayal. I was thriving. To everyone who's followed this story, thank you. You've walked with me through the hurt, the fight, and the moment I took back my life. If this hit you, if it made you feel the sting of betrayal or the fire of fighting back, hit that subscribe button and join us. Every story we share is about facing the truth, reclaiming what's yours, and building something better. Keep carving your own path, and I'll see you at the top.